That's right, guys, you read the title. We're going to turn the boost up on this thing. We're going to see if we can deliver one of these pistons to the International Space Station. Okay, so before we turn the boost up, there's a couple things that I want to do. I've had this thing together for about 1,000 miles now, and everything's been going fairly well. A few little things here and there, which I'll talk about later, a little bit later in the video. I did make a homemade boost leak checker that I'll show you guys here in a minute. But yeah, there's some few things I want to tidy up. We'll go over that, and yeah, let's get started. Okay, so obviously if you would have seen the video of me putting this together, you would have seen that I put just regular hose clamps on all these connections up here by the manifold. That was just temporary. I didn't have enough of the T-bolt clamps. I did order more. So first order business, I want to get T-bolt clamps on all these. And I need to trim this down a little bit because this is on an angle and it's bugging me. I want it to be straight and then come out 90. So I'm gonna get that, trim that up, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I have that part up by the intake taken apart. This is the mass airflow sensor housing. This is the one that I did have to cut this out of the factory air box. Didn't get it super clean like I wanted to last time. So I went ahead and cleaned this up really well, sanded it, so that turned out pretty nice and smooth now. And that should fit in here perfect. Now, something that I did learn through a little bit of research, I was watching Car Passion channel, did a broken boosted Miata, and he actually said that you should get your vacuum signal for your wastegate as close to the intake butterfly as possible. So this is actually right before. Here it goes. This goes into the intake of the engine, and this is the closest I can get it. So I'm actually gonna drill a hole here and tap this for a small little barb fitting. For this small little barb fitting, that way it'll go right in here. I can hook my boost line up to it. It'll actually be on the bottom side, so that way you won't be able to tell it's there. And yeah, so that should give me a little better response. Right now it's right hooked up to the turbo. There's a little fitting right on the turbo right by the outlet of the cold side of the turbo, and that sometimes they say it can give you a little bit of lag. So I'm actually going to get this put up here and we'll see what happens. Also right down here, kind of see it right there, that's the fitting that I'm going to be hooking up a wastegate signal hose to. And I do have one of these little eBay boost controller deals here, so I plumbed that in, but now I need to make this line a little bit longer to run up to that fitting up there. Okay, so got the intake all back together. I have all of the T-bolt clamps in there now and everything. I'm kind of refining what I did, lining up the clamps in the same orientation, making everything look kind of nice and neat and tidy. I did angle the mass airflow sensor back a little bit. It was straight up like this, so the wiring was hanging out in here. So now it looks a little more clean that way. But next step is going to be checking for boost leaks. So went to the hardware store, picked this up. This is like a cap for a Schedule 40 pipe. This is 3-inch OD on the back side here. And this is the cap. This is the only thing I was trying to find, just a regular cap, but I couldn't find one. So this is the best I can come up with. I silicone the threads with some silicone sealant, tighten it down really well, and then put a valve stem in the end of it, drill the hole, and then silicone that in as well. That way now I can take off this side of the air filter connector, and I can slip this guy on there, and we can pressurize the intake system. Okay, so I have the boost leak checker in place. Pretty easy, just slipped it on in place of the air filter. Now I can pull the valve stem cap off. This cost me maybe $8 to build this. Picked up one of the gauges that you can read your pressure with. That way I can put this on here and I can start pressurizing the whole intake system. And then I can start listening for leaks first of all. And then second of all, I have some soapy water I'm going to spray on all of the joints everywhere, starting right here at the turbo and working my way around just to see if there's anything that I have leaking. And then we'll go from there and see what happens. Okay, on the first thing here, I'm going to put this on and run it up to maybe about 8 or 10 PSI. I mean, yes, I'm only running 5-ish PSI once we crank the boost up on this, but you know, we're safe at 10 PSI, probably even 15, but right away I have a leak somewhere. Forgot I had the fitting on there for the manual for the wastegate signal, so I'm going to move that. Actually, there's a few different ports on the wastegate. There's one that's facing this way right now, and there's one that's kind of facing that way, which will be able to run. I'll be able to put it on the other side, get get away from all the heat and just be able to run a short little hose from there to there. Okay, so I moved my wastegate signal line. You can kind of see it right there. It was down here on the other port. Move that over there, so now it runs around, comes up into that fitting, and the boost controller is right there. So pretty short line, doesn't go very far. So now we can start pumping up pressure on this to see where the leaks are, because you know there's going to be some. So I'm starting to pump this sucker up, get it up to about 5 psi or so, and I definitely have a leak. And I believe, yep, it's coming out of the mass airflow sensor where it mounts to the housing. I'm gonna pull that off and see if there's something wrong with that O-ring maybe. Yeah, it's not this joint here, it's definitely the mass airflow sensor. I gotta pull that guy off and see what's going on there. Okay, so I went ahead and fixed this up. It was just leaking from the O-ring there. Cleaned up everything really well, greased it, slid it back in. Now I don't get any noise from there. So now we'll see. Bring this guy back up again. That's about 6 psi right there. We got some leaking. So I'm leaking right here. This is the vacuum line that I tied the fuel pressure regulator into. So that's leaking a little bit from right there, it looks like. Maybe this is the old hose from the truck that's been on here, so it might need some new hose right here to, yeah, it's definitely leaking right there. All right, I found another leak. Okay, so I went through and I believe I found all of my leaks. Everything, actually all the T-bolt clamps actually were really no leaks there at all the joints here. Actually, it was that this is where I teed into my fuel pressure regulator, and I had a little bit of a leak here. It's still not perfect. It still has a tiny little leak, but I need to get something different, different fitting or something here. Different T, maybe a brass T. It's just a plastic cheap little T from AutoZone, so I think that's kind of giving us some trouble. But it's a very small leak, so I can run it up to about 7 or 8 psi on the gauge, and it holds just fine. That's probably about my limit right now anyway, maybe 6 psi with stock injector, stock ECU, stock fuel pump, all that stuff. So I guess I'm gonna throw this back together and we're gonna take it for a ride, and we'll turn up the boost with the boost controller. Also, one thing I did want to mention, so this is the hose going down to the fuel pressure regulator down here. And so that actually ran underneath the intake up to the front here, right here on this fitting, or on this hose tube. And then I ran it up and teed in over here. So I made that considerably shorter instead of going through all that stuff. I don't know if that's gonna make a difference or not, but it can't hurt to have a shorter line there. Okay guys, we're back in the truck. I drove a little, just like a minute or two, just to make sure everything is nice and warmed up before I really got on it. Something I noticed right away is it spools like boom, like almost instantly now. Before it was kind of a little bit lazy to come up, but this is on I have the boost controller turned all the way down to nothing. So I'll go do a couple hits and we'll see what it's like. And yeah, we'll turn up the boost a little bit. We'll stop right here and we'll give it a hit. One thing I noticed right off the bat, the AFRs are a lot better now. Before I was seeing like some high 13s, 14s, and now when I hit it, it goes to about 11-ish, maybe a little bit around 12. So that seems to be better already. But yeah, I'm gonna pull over, I'm gonna crank the boost controller up a little bit. And that was about maybe 2 PSI, I think, max. All right, turn the boost controller up a little bit, we'll hit it again. That seems about 3 PSI peak, and AFR still look good, so I'm gonna turn up a little bit more. I think I can go 5 or 6 PSI before we really start to run out of fuel. So we'll turn it up a little bit more. Something I noticed also is it seems to be much more responsive. Before it would kind of like bog and then go, and now it's like the turbo comes on like right away. Alright, so it looks like with that little boost controller I can get up to about 3 PSI, but I only have a 4 PSI spring in the wastegate, so it's kind of maxed out about 3 to 3.5 PSI right now, and I can't, doesn't matter what I do with that boost controller, doesn't want to go anymore. But it definitely feels a lot better from down in the lower RPMs going up through the rev range from a dead stop. It's way more responsive now. I feel like the boost comes on a lot quicker, especially now that I know I had all those leaks. And yeah, it seems to be much more responsive. I had an issue where it was surging under partial throttle boost, and that seems to be pretty much gone now. I can't really notice it too much, but I mean, it sounds good, makes cool noises, so to keep messing with it here, and we'll see if I can get a little more boost out of it. All right, guys, back in the garage. This thing definitely is a lot more spunky out of the hole, and down low in the RPM range, you can feel the boost come on quicker now. You know, just those boost leaks and whatnot, I think we're having some troubles with getting it to spool and stay spooled. There was an exhaust leak on the V-band on the crossover on the driver's side. You'd have to tighten that up. Those things don't seem to be the best quality from CX Racing. They kind of loosen up a little bit. I had to tighten this one up already. And yeah, so that was something I did off camera. But also the little, I got that cheap little eBay boost controller. Doesn't really seem to be the best quality, but I can get about 3.5 PSI out of it right now. Maybe somebody can answer this question. If you have a 4-pound spring in there and you use one of those boost controllers, does that allow you to have more boost and override the spring? That's something I'm not sure of. I'll do a little bit of research on that, or somebody can answer that in the comments. But anyways, guys, go ahead and end this one here. This thing's freaking blast, and you know, seems to be like a lot of people like it and enjoy it and think it's cool. But go ahead and yeah, leave, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.